making love or making snoring at 2:30 in the morning, but I'm here with you, and I'm excited because what we're going to talk about this morning is stuff that will keep you awake, and it's also kind of mysterious. So let me go find my notes because I am really excited and looking forward to this. So whatever time it is for you, fasten your seatbelts because you're in for a treat, something never before heard on any platform on the planet. You're going to hear Stina Almroth talk about fika, which is the coffee break behind Sweden's business success. Stina Almroth is from Sweden, the country of fika, and you're going to learn all about the whole story here. Having baked at home since she was a child, so see already baking, she got my attention. She's baked wherever in the world she's lived. Which means I'm going to start following you, Stina, because I am all about the baked food. Having baked at home since she was a kid, she's baked everywhere in the world she's lived. While in India, it dawned on her that the importance of pastries and coffee, i.e., fika, in Sweden was special. So special, she thought, that the rest of the world must learn about it. Her hunch of fika was so special that it grew into a book, Fika Made in Sweden. Today, she wants to share with you how the most Sweden of invention, this most Swedish of inventions, easy for me to say, may even explain Sweden's business success. This we got to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, live from the country of Sweden, the incredible, the amazing Stina Almroth. Good morning, Stina.
Good morning.
I'm excited.
Well,
I'm thrilled to hear this.
Well, I'm very happy to be able to share this with you because this connecting fika to business is a new insight for me. So I'll see if you think it makes sense. So coffee, love, and business. Where is the logic, you might ask? I understand because it was, as I said, just quite recent that I myself began connecting these words. And as Ken explained, the reason I wrote this book about fika there was that I thought it was special. But then when I was done writing the book, I was completely amazed. And what struck me the most was how very Swedish fika is. And not just very, most Swedish. So then I thought, is that the first thing we mention when we want to impress the world and attract visitors and companies to Sweden? No, not really, of course. But I kept on thinking and wondering, what role does fika play, or what could it play as part of our efforts to market Sweden? It was the Business Sweden, which is Sweden's trade council, that gave me a clue. In short, their mandate is to help international companies invest in Sweden and Swedish companies to grow globally. And Business Sweden summarizes Sweden's business advantage in 4 words on their website. It's sustainability, equality, co-creation, and innovation. It was when I read these words that I began connecting the dots. I thought, couldn't these exact same words be used to describe fika? And this is what I want to explore with you today, how these actually are connected and what comes first. So let me introduce you to fika by taking you on a tour of your first visit to Sweden. And imagine that you're coming for work. Also imagine COVID is over and everybody's back from their kitchen tables and now working in the office again, an average office. I can almost guarantee that one of the first questions you will hear is, how about fika? Or you may simply be told it's time for fika. Your colleagues are asking if you want coffee or informing you it's time for coffee. And not just coffee, because then you'd really just be having coffee. Fika means you're having coffee and something else. Like we'd love to have cinnamon buns, for example. And if you arrive at your office or whatever workplace late morning, you are especially likely to be asked about fika. So after this morning fika, then you do some work. Then it's lunchtime. You might again do some work. And then in the afternoon, again comes this question of fika. And you thought you were coming for work. When you get to the fika room, as we call it, you'll find that besides your immediate colleagues, the boss is there, the secretaries are there, and yeah, the whole office is there. Correct. That is the ideal scenario, to gather everybody. Now let's change the scene just a little bit. It's summer, and one of your colleagues has invited you for the weekend to their summer place. You get to meet the whole family, both adults and children, and say it's a nice summer day in the afternoon. Everyone is off doing their own thing. Kids are playing. Someone is digging in the garden. Another one might be reading a book. And somebody calls out saying, it's time for fika. You can be sure that the first ones to turn up are the kids, but everybody else also. And as you may have guessed by now, we learned about fika as little kids. Learn even seems the wrong word, because we absorb a lot of unwritten rules about fika. And the most fundamental of these rules is that fika is for everybody. Other things that we learned about fika are that when something is to be celebrated, we do it with fika. We learned that in any sad situation, fika will make everyone feel better. If you want to show you care, you do it with fika. We develop an understanding that fika helps create a sense of belonging and togetherness. It's as if we are communicating without words through fika, like it's another language. And this language too has grammar. So there we are with two languages, Swedish and fika. And we carry on speaking both. And just as we don't change the grammar of Swedish, we don't change the grammar of fika. It remains the same wherever we go. And this explains that fika at work goes by the same rules as the fika that we learned at home, which is practical also because then we don't have to learn another set of rules. So all the stuff that we learned at home about fika, we now achieve at work. We celebrate, we care, we belong. And this is about love, actually. An illustrative example of this in the official world is how the Swedish Consulate General in New York City used fika after the terrorist attack on 9/11. With all the staff affected, directly or indirectly, the Consul General felt the need to communicate his and the consulate's sympathy and concern. They did this by organizing fika for everybody and with the best pastries. And no other act could have conveyed their sympathy and concern more strongly than fika. Fika served another purpose too during this critical time when the consulate was open 24/7. Since everybody was present at fika, this was a time when they could share information with everybody. Being practical is a Swedish trait. So if we keep our office glasses on, let's examine the effects of fika in the work setting. It's I may not have explained it so well, but a fika is really a break. It's not for work, but that doesn't mean that we can't mention work-related issues, which then means that everybody gets a sense of what's going on and a sense of being part of a larger context. When you meet your colleagues for work, for fika every day, you get to know them at some level. And when it's your turn to bring pastries for fika, it's your chance to make a love and care deposit. And any Swede knows that the ultimate is to bake yourself. Now, we may not solve problems more complicated than during fika than deciding on which new coffee machine to purchase or who's going to have vacation when. But it gives us a chance to work together, and we develop an expectation that problems are to be solved together. So I think another label for these fika breaks could be team building. It's a team building practice. And fika may replace many weekends of formal team building retreats. I had always wondered how it's possible that Sweden, with its very modest population size, 10 million, has contributed so many significant innovations to the world. We rank number 2 on the Global Innovation Index. Now, I think that fika may help explain this extraordinary statistic. So let me see if you might agree with me. First, since everybody's there, it means that at fika, you have people with different skills and different competencies. But the most important thing about fika is that when we meet for fika, we are there without any other agenda, meaning we are present to and for each other. So it's like the ideal setup for mentioning an idea that you've been thinking about and perhaps developing it further or not. So you could actually also look at a fika as an incubator. In Sweden, then, turbocharged with a multiplication factor of 365. Sweden should turn out innovations. And innovation, remember, that was one of the words that Business Sweden used to explain Sweden's business advantage. Now, let's look at the other words that they mentioned. Equality, and I think that may be the most obvious one, because fika, as I've explained, it's for everybody. Secondly, it's something that we all learn. And fika is something that we all can do. As long as we have the simplest little biscuit at home, we can offer a cup of coffee with that biscuit, and we are offering fika. It's inclusive. Sustainability is another word, and you could look at that from different angles. And I think that in the context of fika, the people sustainability may be the most important one. What we learn from about, belonging, togetherness, and that daily dose or everyday dose, I like to call it, of love that we get through fika. We all learn about fika, and we all know it so well. It requires 0 resources for training. It's low tech, it's even no tech. And then there was another word, co-creation. And as I explained, when we sit there and discuss about our coffee machines and other things, it's practice. So then if we look at through the lens of fika, is it a coincidence that the words that Business Sweden has chosen to capture Sweden's business advantage are sustainability, equality, co-creation, and innovation? I don't think so. We train for these words, and the training ground is Fika. Thank you.
Are you still there?
I'm still here, and those are my thoughts. If anybody has anything to
Oh, okay.
talk about.
You have a full 30 minutes, so you kind of just surprised me
I
at
have
40.
30 minutes. No, I thought I had 20, and that
Oh,
I'd leave some time for.
No, you have a full 30. So tell us more about Fika. That's what I was saying before we started. I said we originally, our plan was originally 20, but people tend to go long, so we allowed 10 minutes. But since everyone was on time,
and I did it the opposite. I was trying to create a margin for the 20 minutes.
There you go. So now we have to have some Fika so we can play.
Yeah.
Except that I'm having water, so but you can go grab yours. I'm all about the pastry though. I want to hear about the food. That's my favorite piece. So is there a favorite type of pastry or food that?
Absolutely.
Right.
We love. I mean, what we love more than anything are buns, sweet buns.
Okay.
And the most Swedish of all sweet buns is a cinnamon bun.
Ooh.
We have a day for cinnamon bun day on the 4th of October.
Ooh, I'm in for that. We need to do a special cinnamon bun day event. Well, just a couple of days ago was Pancake Day in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So I woke up in the morning and I got into a clubhouse room and they're all talking about pancakes. And I was like, well, I guess I'm making pancakes for breakfast, which I did. But cinnamon buns, I've not made cinnamon buns before, but I do love them a lot.
Mm.
So
that's actually, I mean, I explained about my book. It's a book about Fika. It's not a baking book. It's not a recipe book. But people said, you must have some recipes. And so twisting my arm, there is one recipe, and that's for cinnamon buns.
Ooh, I want that recipe. I am all about sharing that. I'll tell you, it's funny. While I'm not a coffee person, so I am stuck on the baking side of it. Having lived in Thailand for the past nearly 10 years and moved here to Australia about a year ago, we don't really have ovens in Thailand. Typically, like just a hot plate or something, because we don't cook. I mean, cooking for me is grilling up some chicken, frying up some chicken, we'll put it on salad so I can have something healthy. But typically, I'm eating on the street. So having moved here to Australia, or even when I visit my mom in the States, would there be an oven? Guess what I'm doing? I am baking. And so whether it's brownies or this or that, and lately here I've become known for apple cobbler. That's kind of actually it's become a means of compensation for people, because I have a concierge that works with me when I am doing live events like this, and when I do my Pride event, which stands for how to produce ridiculously irresistible digital events. I'm on camera. I just can't leave the set to go get a bottle of water or make some tea or whatever. Or if it was to be Fika, which for me, I'm sorry, but I don't like coffee. Anyway, I'm one of those anomalies. But yeah, so Bob, who comes in and works with me, he said, I'll do it, but you got to make me an apple cobbler. So knowing that you travel the world baking,
I have been famous for my apple cake. Actually, I went to Cornell.
Okay.
And so a friend of mine had a vegetarian restaurant there called Cabbage Town. And so my apple cake became their most famous recipe. And Julie Jordan, she has my recipes in 2 of her cookbooks. And I get mails from people saying, oh, I was making your apple cake, and oh, my grandmother liked your apple cake. Yeah. So
Now, so where do I find that recipe? I want to try that. Not tonight because it's a little bit late. It's almost 3 o'clock in the morning. But
you can look. I don't know if you. I could mail it also, but Julie Jordan has 2 cookbooks, at least one that has it. Wings of Life cookbook.
Okay.
And I think 100 best recipes of Julie Jordan, something like that.
And so she's calling it her recipe, but it's your recipe.
Yeah, well, she's the one who's made my recipe famous, you could say.
That's funny.
Oh.
Okay, that's I'm also, I wonder if I can Google if I'm literally writing this down right now as we speak. Apple cake.
It's even a non-egg cake.
Non-egg. Interesting.
Yeah. Whole
well,
wheat.
you know, my cobbler has no egg either. Actually, it's just brown.
Yeah, no,
sugar.
they shouldn't. No.
It's a lot of sugar. Let me tell you, but it's great. I didn't mean to take us up on this tangent, but you got me started, girl. You got me started. And then when you cut to the apple cake, yeah, I'm ready. I'm easy. I'm very, very simple. You give me the best food like that. I'm like all over it. So I'm coming for the cinnamon buns. I'm coming for the apple cake. I'll let everyone else have the fika, but I'll take care of all the carbs.
Anyway, I can just share a little bit about that. I created a free gift. I didn't exactly have one, but I thought,
yeah.
So, that, because when you say that, I don't drink coffee.
Right.
But you see, the first rule of fika is you must always say yes to fika.
Ah.
So then the tricky part becomes how to gracefully get out of actually drinking coffee. We are experts. I mean, there are lots of ways. I mean, you have to first say yes. Okay. And then you might explain whatever your story is after having said yes.
Okay.
But you can, of course, drink tea. You can drink lemonade, hot chocolate, cold chocolate. Kids, of course. So
I do love my hot chocolate, I have to admit. My chocolate.
But anyway, that free gift is like a crash course in how to manage life in Sweden, and fika is knowing about fika is a great door opener, I'd say.
I love it. So what we'll do, you guys, is we will put the free gift, as always, on the dashboard. So that will, if you simply go to worldloveweek.com/dashboard, it will be there, and you will have it, and you will love it, and you will drink it. Is there any particular, if our viewers were going to want to have a fika moment, is there a particular type of coffee that they need to brew? Is there a unique way that they need to brew it so that they can enjoy it themselves?
No, it's almost the opposite, that it really doesn't matter. So people make fun of us for drinking cappuccino at the wrong time of the day.
Okay.
But you see, for us, this coffee, that coffee, a third coffee, it's just coffee. So no, I'm sorry to disappoint you there. Everybody has their favorites, and I lived in India for many years, and I started out with various coffee making gadgets, but one after one they broke, and finally I had nothing, and then I just boiled my coffee in a pan and then put it in the thermos. So even that.
Yeah. Wow.
And actually, boiled coffee keeps it really well.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I know none of that disappoints me at all. In fact, I think it's fascinating because I'm always about that life's uncertain, eat dessert first. And I remember when we would do live events and I would go to the National Speakers Association in the US for their annual conference or annual convention. And I would sit at lunch, and they would always put the dessert on the table in the center of the round table so that when there was a speaker after the main lunch was over, they wouldn't have to clang the plates and the dessert was already on the table. So me seeing the apple pie or whatever they had on there that wasn't going to melt, it was there. I mean, it was right there. We didn't have the main course yet. We didn't have the salad yet. We had nothing. but there was that dessert. And I was like, it has my name on it. Why am I waiting? So I was diving into that dessert, and there was this one very proper English woman who was living in the States. And she was very unhappy with me when I would dive in. I mean, that is just not right. The dessert comes later. I'm like, not in my world, girl. If it's there, I'm eating it. Life is uncertain. And so, yeah, doesn't matter to me whether it's a proper type of proper coffee or it's a cappuccino or this or an espresso. I don't care. If you like it, eat it. That's my attitude.
But part of this crash course on fika is that there is an order in which to eat these pastries.
Okay. Oh, really? Now that's interesting. Tell me about that.
So that matters.
Okay.
We start with buns, and then we have like a fancy layered cake, torta, last.
Ooh.
And everybody learns this. I mean, so in your case, no, you'd really make a fool of yourself. Like
I'd be in trouble.
Longstocking, you'd be in trouble.
Okay.
Are we familiar with Pippi Longstocking? Astrid Lindgren's?
Yeah.
She's the only one that any of us have ever heard of who started with torta. She stuck her head in the torta. And her first coffee party became her last coffee party. There you go.
Well, the last thing I want to do is
a good thing to do.
Get myself in trouble. So we're going to start with the buns. We're going to start with the buns, and then we'll go.
You go from less fancy. You go from less fancy to more fancy.
More fancy. That's reasonable. We
think it makes sense.
That's neat. Well, I think that's exciting. And actually, what I find super exciting is learning how other cultures really run their customs. And I think that for so many people, we run roughshod over the way people do things and don't sit back enough to respect the culture that we're about to receive. And I'm not sure whether that's cultural on a Westerner side or whatever, but I think it's important for us all to step back, and before we jump in with assumptions of what we know, we find out exactly what is important to the people that we're with and respect that. So I immediately assume we're just going to jump in and have pastry. Oh, no. We're going to have cinnamon buns, and then we're going to follow that with a layered torta. And we're going to do it in this very proper fashion, even though we can have our fika any way we want. There are pieces of this that are very specific. And so I think that's fascinating. This has been, as I said to you before we started, it is the middle of the night for me, and no pressure, but this better be good and keep me engaged. And it has. So you delivered, and I appreciate that. This is a fascinating subject. And as other countries have their own customs, it's always exciting to learn how that is. And you've been all around the world, from going to Cornell to being in India to being back in Sweden and on. And that really makes you very, very unique and very, very special to give yourself a world view that so many people do not have.
Well, I mean, it's only because I was away from Sweden that that distance to Sweden was what allowed me to see fika as special, I think.
Sure, absolutely. Because being away does give you recognition that what you consider being normal is not necessarily normal. It's when you're that close to it. John Kennedy years ago, when he was speaking in Boston, said, "It's great to be back where I don't have an accent." And it's kind of that sort of thing. It's, back in Sweden, for me, and we have just a couple of seconds left, so I won't tell the story, but I do want to thank you for being with us, because it's super special. And again, having someone as engaging in you as you in the middle of the night for me is super special. So Stina Almroth, thank you so much for being with us today. You are a rock star.